Hello, welcome to English Learning for Success. Today I want to share something a bit funny and interesting that I hope will help you understand English better. Sometimes stories can teach us not just about life, but also how to communicate better in English. I remember one student of mine. Her name was Maria. She was a sweet lady from Spain. Maria was married, and when she first joined my class, she often talked about trying to speak English at home with her husband. But there was a small problem. She couldn't always think of the right words to use. This made her feel frustrated, like she wasn't a good wife because she couldn't always say the things she wanted to in English. She told me one time that her husband asked her how her day was, and she wanted to explain everything. She wanted to say how her day at work went, how her colleague Sarah talked about a new project, and all the small details that made her day either good or bad. But instead, when her husband asked, all she could say was, "It was good," because she didn't know the exact words. She felt bad because she wasn't able to express herself clearly. The main problem wasn't that she was a bad wife, as she jokingly called herself, but that she needed more practice in English. Just like many people who are learning a new language, saying the simple things like, "I am happy" or "My day was okay" is easy. But telling the little details, like what happened at work, who said what, how you felt about it, can take some more effort, especially when you're just starting out. I remember one day in class I told Maria we would practice English she could use at home, between her and her husband. So we practiced small conversations. I played the husband, and she answered as herself. I would say things like, "Maria, how was your work today?" And she would try to add more than just good or bad. At first, she paused a lot, saying things like, my boss, he, angry." It was broken English, but it was okay. I always told her it's okay to make mistakes in English. It's part of learning. We all make mistakes when learning something new, right? The most important thing was that she continued speaking and at least tried to communicate. This is what I want you to understand as well. Remember, learning English is not about being perfect from the start. It's about progress, little by little. Maria started by just giving a simple answer. Then, she learned how to expand her sentence. Instead of, "My boss angry," she would add details like, "My boss was angry because I was late." See what she did there? Now the sentence made a bit more sense, and she felt more confident. I always tell my students, the more you practice, the better you get. Maria took that advice to heart. Every night she would go home and try to speak in English with her husband. Sometimes she got stuck again, and when she did, she wouldn't give up. She would think about what she wanted to say and find new ways to express herself. Isn't that a good lesson? When we don't get something right, we don't quit. We find another way to get better. Sometimes Maria felt shy because she thought she wasn't good enough at speaking English. But I told her, it's okay to feel shy, but it's not okay to stop trying. You see, learning a language is like learning to ride a bike. At first, you may fall. You might even think, "I will never ride this bike well." But the more you ride, the more your body and brain understand how to balance, and soon you can ride anywhere. It's the same with English. The more you speak, hear, and practice, the easier it becomes. Fast forward 6 months, Maria felt more confident. One day she came to class and said, "Teacher, now when my husband asks how my day was, I can tell him everything. I don't just say good, I say, oh, today was tiring because my boss was late with a payment and I had to finish a project." This made her feel so proud, and of course I was proud of her too. I hope you feel the same way about your progress in learning English. Sometimes you might feel like you don't sound right. Maybe you're afraid you'll say something wrong. But let me tell you a secret. Even native speakers make mistakes. We forget words, or we get confused about the right words to use. That's why I always say, don't let small mistakes stop you. Small mistakes help us improve. The important part is to keep going. Now think about Maria's story. She started with saying very basic things, and step by step, she learned how to express herself more clearly. You're also taking steps, step by step. Your situation might be different. You've got your own journey and challenges. But whether it's at work, with friends, or even at home with your loved ones, it's the same process. Give yourself permission to make mistakes and learn from them. You might remember the famous quote, "Don't watch the clock. Do what it does. Keep going." This is so true when it comes to learning English. Don't count the days and wonder, when will I be perfect? Instead, keep practicing, keep speaking, keep learning. Fluency will come. You just need to keep moving forward and trust the process. Maybe some days will feel hard. Maybe you'll think, I can't speak English today. It's too difficult. But those are the days you need to push through the most. Those are the times when you are actually learning more than you realize. Just like Maria did, just like my other students do, you can too. Every step counts toward being better than yesterday. So here's what I want you to do. Don't be afraid to speak, even if it's not perfect. Start conversations, even if you can only talk for a little while. Practice with people around you. It could be people at your workplace, your friends, or even family members. If you don't know how to express something, ask them or look it up after. Each time you do this, your English will get stronger and better. Remember how Maria felt in the beginning. She thought she was a bad wife because she couldn't fully express herself in English. But the truth is, she was just like anyone learning something new. And what did she do? She kept practicing. Soon enough, she became someone who could have long conversations in English, feeling proud of her progress. This can happen for you too. Don't give up. At English Learning for Success, our goal is to support you in your journey, every step of the way. And just like Maria's story, you have your own story to tell. Your story is one of growth, and every word you learn gets you closer to the fluent speaker you want to be. So when you feel stuck, remember Maria's journey, or think about people you know who succeeded after struggle. Keep going, trust yourself, and don't be afraid to speak up. You'll soon find that English becomes easier, more natural, and will open up many new doors for you. We're happy that you're on this journey with us. Keep pushing, because in time, you'll reach a place where you can say, I can speak English confidently and well. That's the goal. Keep practicing, stay patient, and I'll always be here to guide you. Now it's your turn, husband and wife. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to have you here today. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're ready to learn and improve your English. Don't worry if you're a beginner. I'm here to help, step by step. Learning English is a journey, and I know that everyone here is ready to take that journey together. So, today, I want to share a story with you. It's about a young couple, a husband and a wife, who worked hard to improve their English. They struggled at first, but with time and practice, they grew confident and were able to speak well. The husband's name is Oliver, and his wife's name is Amelia. They lived in a small town in another country where most people didn't speak English. One day, Oliver got a job with a big company. The only problem was that the job required him to speak English every day. Amelia and Oliver wanted to move to a bigger city where there were more opportunities. But things changed when they realized that speaking English was a necessary skill in their new city. At first, it was difficult. Oliver was nervous. He knew how to say small words like hello and thank you, but he needed to say much more in his new job. Amelia didn't know much English at all. When they moved to the city, simple tasks like going to the market or asking for directions became hard. Amelia would often try to ask for help, but sometimes people didn't understand her. She felt embarrassed, and this made learning even harder. One day, Oliver and Amelia were walking in the street. They needed to ask for directions to a new restaurant a friend told them about. They tried to ask a man on the street, but their sentences were slow, and they were unsure about the right words. The man was very kind and patient and repeated what they were trying to say. This moment wasn't easy for Amelia or Oliver. They felt embarrassed. But instead of giving up, they took it as motivation. They decided that if they wanted to live comfortably in this city, they needed to work on improving their English speaking skills. Amelia suggested that every evening after dinner, they would sit down and practice basic English conversations. They started very slowly. Oliver would say phrases like, "How was your day?" or "What do you want to do tomorrow?" These were simple, everyday sentences, but it was still difficult in the beginning. Amelia would sometimes ask, "Can you say that again, but slower?" or "What does that word mean?" There were a lot of moments when they made mistakes or used the wrong words. But slowly, after many weeks of practice, they began to improve. Oliver used English at his job, and every time he didn't understand something, he made sure to ask questions. He said, "I realize if I make a mistake, it's not bad. It's how I learn." This is important. You should never be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes show us what to improve. This is one lesson I'd like for you to take today. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. They are part of the journey, and instead of feeling bad, think of them as steps toward becoming fluent. During this time, Oliver met a coworker whose name was James. James spoke perfect English, but he wasn't always clear when he talked. At first, Oliver couldn't follow everything James said. James would tell funny stories, and sometimes Oliver missed the punchline because he couldn't catch all the words. One afternoon, Oliver decided to ask James to speak a little slower. James was so understanding. He said, "I didn't know you wanted me to slow down. For sure, from now on, I'll talk clearly." By telling James what he needed, Oliver found the courage to improve his listening skills. Amelia, on the other hand, spent afternoons talking to the locals. In the beginning, it wasn't easy. She worried that people would not understand her. But she learned something important. People were always willing to help her. When she needed bread at the bakery and forgot the word for baguette, the lady at the counter smiled and said it for her slowly, "Baguette." These small moments gave her confidence. Every day they worked on getting better. Amelia started keeping a notebook where she wrote down new words she heard in conversations. Maybe she went to the supermarket and someone talked to her about fruit. She would write down the names of the fruits she didn't know, then go home and study the words. Each day she learned something new. Now here's where the motivation comes in. You see, Oliver and Amelia didn't become fluent in one day or even one week. It took months of practice. Sometimes they felt like it was a lot of work. Amelia said one day, "It's so hard. Why is English so difficult?" And I can understand that feeling. Many students feel the same way. But Amelia and Oliver kept reminding themselves of why they were learning English. They remembered that if they wanted to live a comfortable life in the city, they needed to communicate well in English. You might be thinking, "I understand Amelia and Oliver's struggle. I feel the same way sometimes." And that's okay. A big part of learning any language is patience. You have to remind yourself that you are doing something amazing. Each word you learn is a new step, and with every step, you are closer to speaking like a native. Some days you will feel like you're not progressing. Let me tell you a small secret. Everyone feels this. Even people who speak English fluently today remember the days they thought they would never get better. Don't let those challenging moments stop you. Just take it day by day. Practice a little and rest. One of the things that helped Amelia and Oliver was consistency, simple daily routines. One special thing about their journey was how they supported each other. Learning alone is hard, but having someone to practice with makes everything feel better. If you have a friend, family member, or even a classmate, practice speaking English with them. Over time, they created a small rule at home, English-only day. Once a week, Amelia and Oliver would only speak English the entire day. And you know what? At the beginning, it was really hard. They forgot many words. They had to stop many times and search for the right phrase. But as the weeks passed, the English-only day became easier. Oliver began using English with confidence in his office. His presentations improved, and talking with his colleagues became more natural. Amelia, who often felt shy, started speaking fluently with her neighbors. Months later, when they met friends for dinner, they laughed about how scared they once were to speak in public or ask for directions. And the lesson this couple learned is something you can learn too. Be patient and stay consistent. Little by little, you will build the foundation, and soon you'll realize how much you've grown. Whenever they made a mistake, they didn't let it stop them. Instead, they embraced it as a learning experience. If you're looking for more inspiration and ideas on learning English, remember to check my other videos here with English Learning for Success. Every lesson can teach you something new, and it's important to keep practicing. So, whether you're practicing with a loved one, a friend, or by yourself, know that every effort you make today will see results in the future. Best friends. Today, I have another story to share with you about best friends. Sometimes learning a new language is easier when you have someone by your side, just like with husband and wife from our last story. But today, let's talk about two best friends and how their friendship helped them learn English. The names of our two friends are Chloe and Grace. They have been best friends since they were very young and used to go to school together. Now they don't live in the same town anymore, but they stay in touch all the time. Chloe moved to a new country where many people speak English. Grace still lives in her hometown, but she promised to visit Chloe one day. As you can imagine, Grace is now trying to learn English, so that when she visits Chloe, she can talk to all the new friends Chloe has made. Chloe has been learning English for months because in her new country, she needs to communicate at work and in everyday situations like buying groceries or meeting neighbors. At first, Chloe was nervous. Even though she had learned some words and grammar, speaking was scary. What if I say the wrong thing? She thought. But slowly, she became more comfortable by talking to her new coworkers. They were very supportive and helped her with words she didn't know. Meanwhile, Grace wanted to help Chloe as much as possible, so she also started learning English from her hometown. Grace wasn't in a country where English is spoken, but she found other ways to practice. Every day after work, Grace and Chloe decided to speak on the phone, only in English. They would practice simple conversations, just like Amelia and Oliver did in our last story. At first, Grace was afraid. "I don't know many words," she said to Chloe, "and I am scared to make mistakes." Chloe understood because she had felt the same way before. One day, Grace said to Chloe, "I want to visit you soon, but I am not sure I can speak well enough to talk with everyone there." Chloe laughed and said, "Don't worry, I felt like that too when I first moved here. Her advice to Grace was to just practice speaking as much as possible, even if she made mistakes. You will get better each day, Chloe reminded her. So Grace, though still nervous, decided she wouldn't give up. Their practice sessions started like this. Chloe would call Grace and say simple words like, "How was your day?" or "What are you going to do tomorrow?" Grace found this easy to understand because these were phrases she had learned before. But whenever they moved to more complicated sentences, Grace got confused. "Can you repeat that?" she asked Chloe many times. Chloe would always repeat herself slowly, sometimes even explaining what the words meant. These phone calls were very helpful for Grace, and they made her realize something very important. You don't have to learn English alone. Chloe and Grace supported each other through their language learning journey. Chloe was already more advanced because she was speaking English every day. But Grace knew that if she kept practicing regularly, like Oliver and Amelia, she would improve too. And slowly, over the weeks, she did. One day, Chloe sent Grace a picture of a nice park near her apartment. "I want to show you this park when you visit me," she wrote. Grace got excited and felt even more motivated to speak better English. She started to challenge herself. She said, "Chloe, let's try to have longer conversations next time without using our native language at all." Chloe loved this idea. Just like Amelia and Oliver had their English-only days, Grace and Chloe now had their English-only phone calls. These phone calls were hard. In the beginning, Grace would forget basic words, or she would use the wrong verb tense. Chloe didn't laugh or make her feel bad. Instead, she patiently helped Grace find the right words. "It's okay if you forget something," Chloe told her. "You always have time to learn." This made Grace feel better because she knew that mistakes were part of the learning process. One evening, after a few months of practice, Chloe invited Grace to visit for a weekend. Grace was excited but also a little nervous. She wondered, what if I can't understand her new friends? What if they talk too quickly? Chloe reassured her again. "Grace, you don't need to worry. My friends will be happy to speak slowly. They are all very friendly, and they know I'm still learning English too." When Grace finally arrived in Chloe's new country, she felt nervous. She hadn't been to an English-speaking country before, and she worried about whether she could cope. But Chloe was waiting for her at the airport with a big smile. "You made it," Chloe said, hugging Grace. They talked in English from the moment Grace arrived until they went to sleep that night. As they walked through the airport, Chloe encouraged Grace to ask questions. For example, when Grace heard a message over the loudspeaker, she didn't understand it right away. "What did they say?" she whispered to Chloe. Instead of giving the answer, Chloe asked Grace to listen carefully and see if she could figure it out. Chloe said, "This is how you learn, by trying to understand." It took some time, but Grace slowly understood the words, and this made her more confident. During her visit, Grace joined Chloe and her new friends in the park for a picnic. When Chloe introduced her, Grace spoke in English without any hesitation. The friends were welcoming and spoke slowly to help Grace understand everything. She was a little shy at first, but as the day went on, Grace started asking questions and telling stories from home. Chloe was proud of her best friend because Grace proved to herself that she was capable of speaking English in front of others. Towards the end of her visit, Grace realized that learning English wasn't as scary as she thought in the beginning. "I can see now how far I have come," Grace said to Chloe. "I remember the first time we had a conversation in English. It was hard to form even a short sentence." Chloe smiled and told her, "Yes, but you never gave up." Grace agreed and said, "I feel like I can do anything now." Before Grace left, Chloe gave her an important piece of advice. Keep practicing, even though you're learning English in your hometown. It doesn't matter where you are or who you're with. Speaking English a little each day will make you better. Just like Amelia and Oliver, we've proven that hard work pays off. This is the story of how two best friends supported each other in learning English. Every time Chloe encouraged Grace or reminded her to practice, she helped her friend grow more confident. English learning is not always easy, but it is always worth the effort, especially when you have someone by your side who believes in you. The lesson we learn from Chloe and Grace's story is simple. Never stop trying. Whether you speak with a friend, family member, or even in front of the mirror, every little bit counts. Mistakes should not discourage us, but instead show us what we don't know yet, so we can focus on improving. So, to all of you watching today on English Learning for Success, take the time to find someone to practice with. Learning with a best friend will motivate you even more.